Like Sanne said, I'm going to talk a bit about the test strategy and also about the tool TestCafé, the only cafe which is open during lockdown. Let's see what it will bring us. I'm Diederik Lammerse. I'm started at Capgemini in 2012 as a young professional, like the other speakers tonight. We all started as young professionals, and I'm kind of known for the test automation and the agile testing. That's where people find me for. Next to that, in private life, I also like to do some mountain biking. Here on the left side, you see me in the snow a few weeks ago when it was snowing. The biking was really nice. And I also, next to doing mountain biking, also I'm part of a folklore dancing group, and currently we have been Dutch champion of Turkish folk dancing here on the right, and then this is me here. Yeah, Dutch champion Turkish folk dancing. Did you know it existed? Tonight, I'm gonna talk you through the upcoming agenda items. First, I will talk a bit about the test strategy, then how TestCafé can help us in that, because we see certain things which are a bit more difficult to implement. And what's a tech talk without any technical things? I do a demo on TestCafé and how to test components in that. Let's start with some strategy. Maybe you know, in 2008, Lisa Crispin and Janet Gregory came up with distribution, how to put in all the different tests. We have loads of tests. You see them here on your screen, but how to organize them a bit. So they came up with the testing quadrants. And in the testing quadrants, it says, yeah, let's put supporting the team and critiquing the product on one of the axes, and a technology-facing, more technical test, and more business test on the axis. And then we can make a nice organized view in it. So let's go quickly through them. Then we see that in quadrant 1, we see the unit test. They're technical, and they're and also component tests we see here. So they're technical and they're really helping the team. Quadrant 2, we see functional tests, which is not always a clear, at least functionally testing your application. But sometimes functional test also means end-to-end tests. So okay, there's some lost in translation sometimes there. But we see also here example testing. If you what happens if you put in different inputs, A/B testing, and user experience testing. So this is all really helping the team to check if their product is right. If we then go to more critiquing the product, we come up with the exploratory testing, really trying to break your application or break someone else's application, and also check out the usability and the user acceptance testing. So more critiquing the product here. But still, this is business facing, like the functional test there. Then if we go to quadrant number 4, which is technical and critiquing the product, we see there the performance testing, security testing, and other quality attributes. This is not a complete list. This is just the ones I would want to fit in for tonight, but there are way more kind of testing. Diante and Kimberly are going to talk tonight in the other sessions about user experience testing, exploratory testing, usability testing, and also about how to test the other quality attributes. I am going to talk a bit about how to combine the different functional tests, the unit test, the component test, and more end-to-end functional test, and how to combine them. We see that these tests are all really helping the team to check if their product is is in shape. So that's where I'm going to focus on. So it's really about supporting the team in that sense. Okay, so if we put these different types of tests together, how should we do that? For that, we have the testing pyramid, and a testing pyramid tells us it's a pyramid shape. So it tells us do a lot of unit testing, don't do that much of component testing, integration testing even less, and only a few of graphical user interface end-to-end tests. Why do we have a pyramid, and why is it not a rectangle? Because the higher you come in the pyramid, it's slower and it's also more brittle. So it's really important. If you make too many UI tests, then you will end up with slow tests and brittle tests. And that's the reason that we should have more of these lower unit and component tests. So, but next to slowness, we also see that you have high cost to develop them and maintain them. The possibility of false negatives will increase the higher you come in the testing pyramid. And also the good things are you can cover the whole application here, and you can also it's really how the end user see it. So it's still useful to do some testing here. And since maybe because of these two reasons, you see that some teams will put the not really implemented testing pyramid, but more like a testing what's this, Christmas tree, or what's this, a testing umbrella with a strong base. So you see some people have different amounts of these tests, and I'm going to talk tonight how TestCafé can help you to get this component test on the front end really working. So we're really going to focus on the component test here. So why TestCafé? There are a lot of other tools. Maybe the most known tool is Selenium WebDriver, but the tool why TestCafé is a good tool, or at least a nice tool to work with. It's for web applications. Okay, nice. It's JavaScript written, and the good thing about JavaScript is that also the front-end developers most of the time know to write in JavaScript. So as a team, you can work together more easily since you're writing tests and applications in the same language. So that's a big benefit, especially of the teamwork. Also, the automatic waits are handled quite nicely. So it waits automatically if the page is loaded, and if calls are if the information from the APIs is got there. And you can use concurrent test execution out of the box, which you can just spin up 5 browsers only by one simple command, or whatever, how many CPU you have. So okay, let's have a look on how that looks like. So I've got here the really nice in my IDE I've got a test set up, but let's first look at let's first look at the wonderful app I've got here. I actually, a colleague, Melanie Leo, made a really nice app for me. Really simple, but exactly what I need. So you see here the app. It's just one page. You can fill in some names. Always this one, of course. You can fill in here. Okay, yeah, you can fill in also really my spam email address. Nice. And then, okay, we can click one of the save buttons. I make 3 different versions of save buttons. And then you will see you will end up in a different page with a different URL. And that will be empty again. So, okay, let's gonna test this automatically. Always nice to see an automated test running, right? So we're gonna fill in the details, and eventually eventually we're gonna click on the next button. We haven't done that yet, and then hopefully we see that that we end up in a simple success page. So if we're gonna put here a click to an on this very button here, how do we do that? We can inspect on it. Okay, it's a bit big now, so there we are. Here's the button, and we see it as an ID. ID is native HTML button. Oh, that's nice. There we go. So we need to put in a wait because otherwise it will run all the steps at the same time. So we're going to click. The T I use here That's the test controller. So that's something similar to, say, a driver or a browser, what you know maybe from WebDriver. So I'm going to click, and then I'm going to click on a selector, and the selector, there we go. And the selector is this native HTML button. It was an ID, so I can use a hashtag for that. I end up my line, and I guess this is it. So let's see, I run my test. Because you're testing on the UI, on the browser, you want to spin up an empty browser. So we see here in the bottom screen, I will make it a bit bigger. We're making a browser here. But it takes a while because the cache needs to be cleaned, it needs to make the connections, but we see it start now. There we go. Luckily we have this loader, yeah, so it spins up a browser, empty browser, connects the TestCafé to it, and it will fill in the details, and then it will continue. Yeah, so there we go. And then we do a simple save button, and we check that the URL has success in it. So yes, one task, it's passed. Nice. But however, this is a Vue app. Where am I here? Yeah, this is a Vue app. So if I go back to the nice app here, we see I also created some other buttons, because nowadays it is handy sometimes to work with web components to isolate some CSS and to make web development easier. So let's see if we can also do the same thing for a save button here. So this is a save button component. It's a button component. So here we see web component button. Okay. So we just replace it because it was also ID. We can do this. And yeah, I can tell you this is not working. Why is this not working? I execute it now, but the problem is it runs the component. You cannot access the component immediately, and you need to move to the component and to first dive into there. So that's nice for front-end developers to make web pages like this, but it's not so nice for the testers maybe, because they cannot just use these easy selectors. So that way it's a pity. Let's see what it does. You can fill in a first name, last name, and then we try to find this button, but you see there the big mouse button. Yeah, it cannot find it because the specified selector does not match any element in the DOM tree. If I go there, we see, I'll make it a bit bigger here. We see this button is part of a simple button, which is a web component, and then there's a shadow root. So this is kind of the new root of this component, and then there's this button. So that means we need to do a bit more magic, and we first need to find this simple button. So that means actually, let's make a constant out of that. So we can make a constant. I put my, yeah. So we call it button component, maybe component. And then we say we're gonna selector. Yeah, there we go. But then we need to dive into first we need to select, of course, document. We need to select that how do you call it, the simple button component. So that's quite easy. Simple button it was. Then we need to dive into the shadow root there, and then we need to in that one we can continue and select the actually we can copy this one. There we go. Okay, so So then we have this component here. You see the selector becomes really long. This is exactly what I mean by by that it is not maybe not so easy for the tester or for the people writing the test. And then with this long selector, it should work. So let's check again. So, and that's what I'm going to tell you. This is if we're going full blown with the whole application. However, this simple button is a component. So this component could also be tested separately. So that's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to show you just right after. It's, you see here in the bottom of the screen, it's rendering again. Always nice. I always like to do live demos. There we go. And now we should see. There we go. First name, last name. Yeah, and now it can find the button. Only thing is, the URL is changed to something else. we check the URL to contain the simple success, and what we actually see is it is expected to have but expected simple success here, but it only contains component button success because I have a different name for that. Doesn't matter. So yes, it works like this. But however, we have really this long selector here diving into the shadow root. And now it was only one time a web component. I will show you the other one. Here, this is a save button inside a card component. So, okay, that's even one layer deeper. So the selector would be even longer. So what we can do is we can just first test a component test on the card component. So then you only render the card component. It will look like this. I will have done this on a localhost 8081, so on a different port. And here we have the card component, and we can do already the test on the card component like isolated. So for instance, checking the text on it, if there's any text displayed, we can do that already in the component. So got here my folder structure in the simple card. We see that we have as a separate component, and we have here a test here, which actually just tests this only this component and makes it easier. So really nice. We can just test this one, and then we have the component test done. And with combining all these kind of component tests, we already get a quite good idea if the components of our web page are working. And that means that we have to do less of the integration test where all the components come together, or the end-to-end test. So that's why it's nice to make these component tests and make sure that you already get your information and your quality assessment done on the component itself. Next to that, the component could help us in another way. Since if the component is changed because the component was updated and they changed something in the component, you don't have to update the selector. What you can do, and let's do that. So I don't use this button component now. What we can do is the following. We can just get the selectors which were used in the component. Here's the selector of the component, and we see here there's a nested button component and the simple button component. I will zoom in a bit. Yeah. So since this component button here is written as a variable of the card selector, what we can do is we can just reuse this selector, and in that way also be independent of changes because we just call that selector every time. Let's see how that works. And this way we get the advantages of the components in our integration test. So I don't need to click here. What I'm going to do is I say, okay, I want to click on the simple card component that's defined in the simple card page. And from that simple card page, I want to use the simple button component, which is a function of, because you need to tell in which web component it is. Oh, it is in the card. The card. So yeah, there it is, the card. Okay. So now I actually have here the selector, which is automatically updated. The selector of the button components and also the shadow root in there. So the only thing I need to do is, let me see where to put it here. Oh, this is wrong. The card was not a function. Yeah, here, card. And then I can just say, okay, in this component, I want to find a child, and the child is called, you can check it here. Where is it? You can check how the child is called. The button has ID web component button. Okay, there we go. Web component button. Okay, let me check before I make a mistake. Simple button component. Yeah, this one is there. We put in as a variable that it's part of the card, and then we go in there. And then I expect, let's do that as well. So if I go here, I expect to end up at a page which contains card component success. There we go. It should contain card component success. Let's run it. So another thing on you see now already how many times did I execute this test? To spin up a browser is slow. So try to do as much as possible in your unit test, not only the small functions, but try to get as much as possible in the unit test, since that runs probably a factor 100 faster, maybe 1,000. So that's also interesting, or try to do that to get your pyramid as good as possible. So there we go, first name, last name, email, and the save button, and check the URL. And yes, it passed. So this way we can, one, do component testing, and secondly, be automatically updated if a component is updated. And that's what I wanted to show you in TestCafé. This can be done in other tools as well, but the TestCafé is quite nice and quite new tool to do this with. So let's get back to the PowerPoint. So this way we do this component test, and this way we try to make a complete pyramid which is covering the most important parts of your application in a. This is wrong. This should be this should be slow, guys. So let's go back here. Here, this is better. So this is we can do the best way an pyramid, and in this way we have coverage of all the components, or all the components, all the unit tests, and maybe we don't cover everything in integration test and end-to-end test, but that's already covered in the layers below. And that way we have a stable and fast running complete test suite. And that's actually the whole goal of yeah, I think that's an important goal of being in a team, and that way the team can go faster because we know that the quality is okay of our application and we can assess it automatically really fast. Thanks for listening. Let's see if there's any question about this. Hey, Sanne. You're still on mute, I guess. I see a sign which says mute. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Diederik. So there's more people that are also mountain bikers than that are also into folk dancing. So that's one thing that popped out there. Edwin R, actually a fellow mountain biker, has a question for you. So he's asking, using the shadow root, is that a bad or a good thing? Could you speak to that?
Yeah. The shadow root is, if you want to do good development, or actually modern development, it's a good thing, because in the shadow root you can really isolate CSS, which means that if you kind of combine things on a page and you change something in a button on the in a button, maybe the button is not the best example. If you change something in a label at the bottom, then you don't want that label CSS to be changed somewhere else. And by using shadow roots, you can make sure that this is not happening. So it's a good practice. However, it makes the life of a tester a bit more difficult.
Ah, got it. Is another question here from Sven van Stralen, and I had the same one actually. How does TestCafé fit into a CI/CD or any kind of pipeline? Or if that's too broad, how did you do it in this project where you use TestCafé?
Yeah, now this was just a sample project for this talk, but
Yes, I
in
understand.
my but in my daily life, TestCafé can just be put and can be run because it's a node module, so you can just run the test and put it in any pipeline really easily. And like what I did now, you can build it locally, for instance. Then you can do first some local tests to check if your UI is doing the right thing. And later on, you can even go to connected environments where the UI is connected to an API. So it's really easy to connect in a pipeline. However, is it easier than other apps? Yeah, it's doable, but I think like Selenium WebDriver or Protractor, of course, is also easy to put in a pipeline. So it doesn't have a benefit there, but it works really nice in the pipeline.
All right. Well, there's actually a question there about comparing it to Protractor. You yourself mentioned Selenium a few times, but there's also tools that we know like Fitness and Cypress. Could you give a little bit of an overview how TestCafe fits in? Is it a free tool? What's the licensing like? Or how was
Yeah,
this comparison go?
TestCafé is like a lot of other of the just mentioned tools is free as well. So it's a community tool, and a lot of people use it. So it's updated, and there's nice documentation on their GitHub. DevExpress. You can find it, just type in TestCafé without a space, and you will find it on Google really easy. Yeah, if you compare it to the other tools, it has somewhat. The other tools are nice as well. So for instance, Cypress has really good integration and is probably a bit easier to use. However, TestCafe, like I said, has the benefit that yeah. So the JavaScript thing is a good thing about that you can work together in a team. So that's a nice thing about TestCafe. But I would say if you choose a tool, just see how your team is looking and how your application is looking, and then you can choose a tool on that. So I would not say that TestCafe is per se always the best tool for your team. However, it's a really good fit in my team. Well,
Right, so you look more for the fit with the stack you already have and the people you're working with to select a tool, of which TestCafe is then a good option.
yeah, indeed.
All right, thank you so much. That's it for questions for now. Thank you so much, Diederik. I'll see you back at the end in case any more last minute things pop up. Thank
Yeah,
you for a
great.
wonderful
Thanks for the questions,
presentation.
and nice to have. Thanks that I could be here.